With the critical acclaim and worldwide success of their first feature film, The Dig, Ryan Tohill and his brother Andy achieved something they could have only dreamed of as kids.
It was a really beautiful time, man, because, you know, you weren't pretending anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
It wasn't a wannabe a filmmaker. It's like, now I am a filmmaker.
Yeah, but it was also, there was a modesty in the fact that we were just delighted that we had the opportunity to go and see these cities and to tour with a movie. Like, that's dream come true stuff.
The Dig proved to be the calling card for a now thriving career as film and TV directors. After their successful stint directing TV drama Dalgleish, they moved on to their most ambitious project yet, the just-released Paramount Plus plane crash thriller The Castaways.
There was motorbikes, there was speedboats, there was an airplane crash, and we loved every minute of it, man.
It's Ryan Tohill on the scene. So, Ryan, you have a new show coming out, Boxing Day, yeah?
Boxing Day, yeah.
The Castaways. It's very different from stuff you've done before. So when you look at the trailer, there seems to be a lot of challenges in it. You know, there's an airplane crash, there's motorbike stuff, there's fights, there's weapons, there's underwater stuff. That must have been a massive challenge then to shoot all that, was it? Yeah,
it was. But it was a challenge that we couldn't wait to sink our teeth into, to be honest. Andrew and I, Andrew, my co-directing twin brother, it was daunting when you read the script. You were like, okay, so we've got a crocodile here.
So how did that work? How did that work? You get a crocodile? Like, did you fly Kenny over it? This kid?
Well, you'll have to wait and see. But basically, it wasn't without its challenges, as you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just really nice when you're at a stage of your career when, like, you're still, as a filmmaker, everyone is still going out and fighting for what they want to do.
Yeah.
But being given an opportunity to finally have a bit of material to go, okay, we know how to execute this, and we know how to do it well, and having that trust from the producers and the production company and Paramount Plus, it was lovely.
And is that what drew you to the project? Was all those elements of
absolutely, but like the narrative in itself, like I read the book and there's a lot of questions about female identity and it was a very psychological story, and I was...
How beneficial is it to read the book when you're directing something as opposed to the script, in addition for your prep, say?
It was good because it gave you an insight, like a book and a novel. They dig much deeper. Like Ben Harris, the writer, Ben took Lucy's book and literally injected thriller into it, so there's a lot of cat and mouse chasing,
When you're directing actors, does the book help, because you're going into depth with all the characters and what the psychology of them, and it can help you with actors on set when they have questions and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps having some sort of source material where you're getting, the author's insight into these characters, and it gives you a jumping off spot. It may not always remain truthful when you're actually directing a new story with a script in place, and of course actors bring their own ideas to it, but it certainly does help you.
And what's it like? There's lots of water stuff then. What's it like? What's the challenges? Because I've never really done it before. I've never been on a set that's, in water.
Yeah, well, the whole show, half the show is basically on a desert island.
So does the water just make everything take longer?
Oh, Jesus, mate. I will never... see if I ever see boat, like exterior boat, I will just never do it. It's just, basically, there's so many logistical things. There's a marine unit. They are also the health and safety of the crew. There's only so many people that can be on each boat. It's all radio communication to other boats. But the thing that I didn't realize when doing this was they couldn't anchor anything. These things had to be free to move the second you anchored it. And I could never figure out why this was the case, but the boat always had to have some sort of movement. So you're trying to get a static shot. It was next to bloody impossible. Or you're waiting and you have to turn around and come back, and then everybody be ready to turn over and now. And that shot's lasting 10 seconds.
Yeah. And it's just drifting away.
And it's drifting away, and it was just such a challenge. And you had to remap
how you're going to shoot stuff. So
Exactly.
like even establishing shots and all, you couldn't just have it because it's going to be floating, you know.
Yeah, and the challenge is just try and get 5 seconds of a wide, you know, before we lose it or somebody comes walking into shot.
So there's huge benefits to co-directing then, isn't there? When you like the two of you are like a team, you know, and especially with your backgrounds. I mean, you know, you've so much on-set experience. He's got so much post experience, and it splits up the. You get it nicely. There's a nice contrast of experience there, isn't there?
Andrew and I are almost operate as the same person. You know, our thoughts, our tastes are kind of locked in a way, and very rarely, like Andrew and I would hash out our plan. Literally, all we need for our prep is the script, a big whiteboard markers, and a door that locks.
Yeah.
And then we will argue till we're blue in the face that we come up with a solution about, you know, our shot list, you know, how we're going to block the scene. And all of that's done in prep. So when we come to a consensus, it's good because you can throw ideas off each other.
Yeah.
And when we come to that consensus, that's it locked in, because that's two people that we've really went round and round and round trying to come up with not only the best way of doing it, but something new and something original. You know, a lot of these scenes, it says exterior beach day.
Yeah.
And, you know, the gang are sitting around the campfire.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you shoot that again?
Yeah.
You know, this is the 5th time we're doing a scene like this.
Yeah.
How do we make this? It's the same with the dig. Exterior bog. The two men are digging.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what's our way in?
Yeah.
So Andrew and I are really good at throwing those ideas around and coming up with, well, how about we start extremely macro and we don't know what we're looking at, and, you know, putting yourself in the perspective of the viewer.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Andrew and I really thrive, and where we really enjoy the experiences, the language of what to show an audience, what not to show an audience, when to show the audience.
Sean Griffin then, he was first with you. So what's it like working with him then? And how good is it to have someone you've worked with before and bring them out with you and all? How beneficial is that?
He gives you the freedom and the comfort to, you know, you never feel rushed with Griff. I understand his job. His job is to get the day and complete the day, but he gives you space, and it makes you feel, it puts you in a calming place to be creative. And I think that's what every filmmaker would want from their first. We all know being on sets, man, you know, time is currency, especially to a filmmaker.
Yeah.
So Griff, he affords you space, but he is also a maestro at scheduling. And he found pockets of time that was impossible.
You're talking about the challenges of water, action scenes, fighting scenes, and because it was television, was that a challenge then with, you know, the schedule, with your days really busy, you know, because those things take so much time to shoot. So was that that can be a challenge sometimes in television, you know, to get all that action on a television shoot day, which is generally a bigger page count than a film shoot day, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what our Andrew really, me and Andrew, we really sank our teeth in. It was like, oh, we know how to do this fight scene. Like, you know, we know all of the angles. So we had our homework done.
Yeah.
And just were like blocking it out. And Andrew and I, being kids growing up, play fighting all the time.
But you even see us on set if you have a disagreement or a row or whatever. And it's the brother thing, you know, and you always get this with brothers.
It is.
You know, you get a row.
There's some uncomfortable situations, no doubt, for some people.
Yeah, but you get a row, and 5 minutes later, it's completely forgotten about. But if you just weren't brothers, that wouldn't be the same dynamic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Where we can throw horrible insults at each other and it just wash off immediately, you know. But that's just the nature of it, and I think that anybody that has a sibling can understand that, see that. But usually when Andrew and I are on set, because we've done all our arguing prior to that, you know, and we've got our shot list and we've got our game plan and we know the block, and it's just about execution after that. And I think that's the most important thing about filmmaking is prep and planning and knowing your reasons for doing things, you know, understanding the beats of a story. And I think the reason why we work so well with Griff is Griff he knows we have our homework done.
Yeah.
And we can go in and he just
But you just work really fast.
Yeah, we do.
You just go in. It's just
We'll
till the end.
And
because you like say when you guys shoot television, you don't do it in a like autopilot type way.
No.
You always try and inject some.
Absolutely.
In every shot, you try to inject some sort of, want for a better word, cinematic type of
without a doubt
element to which can take more time. But you guys always get off to a fast start, and it's all.
To be a director, a TV director and a film director, obviously, you know, there are differences. If you're directing for TV,
Yeah.
you know, you're there to tell the story. You're a hard gun. You're not the creator of the show. You know, you're there to give a creative spin on something that's already been pre-planned and developed for quite some time. You come in at a stage where you get to have your input, but at the end of the day, it's a different shoe than the feature film director, where you're God and everything is your decision.
Yeah, I like television. There's so many layers to it, isn't it? There's broadcasts, there's execs,
everybody's got their say, and you know, it's thankfully like Castaways was a very a great collaborative, creative experience with everybody. You know, right down all the execs, the producer, like everybody just wanted to make the best show possible.
And the plane crash then, well, how challenging was that to, because that's in the trailer, isn't it? The crash. How challenging was that to shoot?
It took a bit of time simply because, you know, we had to choose our moments to see outside windows. We had to choose our moments to see an exterior shot of the plane and plummeting. And every time you're choosing a moment like that, that's dollar signs. Like the second that you're creating like an object that's supposed to exist in a visual effects world in this story, it's just money, you know. And we were using Unreal Engine 5 for the visual effects. It was a new pipeline. We had a great visual effects guy on board who was the husband of our producer. And he worked wonders considering we had zero budget for visual effects. You know, and you can see.
And was it green? Was it the plane crash? Was it green screen or was it light volume stuff?
At stages it was green screen. At stages we just blew out
the windows. Yeah,
and that's just out of budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the good thing about it is, you know, when you're engaged in it, we kind of shot that scene all in Laurie's perspective. As directors, Andrew and I just wanted to really feel as if you're just living in Laurie's skin throughout this plane crash. So one of our requests was, because we shot it in a studio, obviously, as opposed to a real plane, we heightened the roof so we could get a camera above. The chairs had to come out in under 30 seconds, you know, and we just wanted to be able to full rotation all around Laurie at all times to just give this sensory experience that we weren't limited to, you know, like how high the ceiling was or whatever, just to give us a real idea that no matter where Laurie went, we were with her.
So the Castaways is on Paramount Plus. It's Boxing Day, isn't it?
It's on Boxing Day. Yeah.
Is the whole series going out at once, or is it?
It drops all together.
So the whole series is out Boxing Day, Paramount Plus, and you can get it with Sky. If you subscribe to Sky Movies, you can get Paramount Plus for free, I think. So
you can, yeah.
Support the local lads, Ran and Andy. Filmmaking then, where did it start for you? When did you decide to yourself, that's what I want to do?
Filmmaking started in 1995. We were 11 years old, and my dad got a video camera for Christmas.
Right.
And I can't remember what we got for Christmas, but we took that video camera and we just started making movies.
VHS? Or like a Hi8, tiny tapes?
Yeah, it was Hi8.
Hi8, yeah.
It was Hi8. It was a great Christmas gift that my dad never got his hands on. And we were making movies every single day, like from that. And my brothers were involved. All my friends were involved. We had our own action hero called Jakey, who basically all he did was just break people's necks, which was always good fun. But it was like literally we had our friends in who all they wanted to do was play football, and we kind of coaxed them. I was like, right, I'll tell you what, if we get to throw you over this table, we'll do nets for the rest of the week. You know, it was that bartering game that just to try and get your mates involved.
Yeah.
As long as we can remember, we just had a video camera in our
And
hands.
think of how different it is now. Like, you know, imagine you're the same age now, and literally all you have to do is pull your phone out of your pocket and away you go. And back then it was like, it's not really recorded it onto VHS, it's then the editing. Do you know what I mean?
I remember being 13 and all I wanted was like a director's viewfinder.
Right.
And I just thought, oh yeah, the stick with the lens on it. I just thought it was the same lens every time you were running around, you know. But that was my dream, and I used to kind of run around doing this here. And I remember one time to just get a feel of being young is just cutting a rectangle out of a box, putting the box over my head, and you're just seeing the world in that anamorphic shape
In a box.
box.
You're easily pleased then.
Well, it really helped.
Happy birthday. There's a box.
But yeah, we made.
And then
horror
how
movies.
did you cut them then?
2 VHSs.
Yeah, I remember doing that too. And I ended up getting this Keen edit system thing. And it was like that size, and it was literally, but the only thing you could do in it was overlay music on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
And there was these in and outs where you're going between.
And you could run the analog into your stereo and just hit play and just feed it through.
Yeah.
the VHSs.
Isn't it
Put
mental?
music in
And
it.
look at what you can do now on a phone.
I
Like,
know. Like you edit in your phone.
yeah. So how did it develop from there then? What were your inspirations then in around that age?
So Andrew and I, we kind of like everybody, man. It was the 80s. Steven Spielberg and
And it was the VHS time, wasn't it? Where you obviously you got all these things. You rented the movies out of Extravision or whatever, you know. Again, like different time. But the 80s was a funny decade for film in the sense that there hasn't really been another decade like that where
It was
kids' popcorn movies were great and big
There's a reason
blockbusters.
why, though, Gino.
Go, tell me.
Right.
Educate me.
you'll know what I'm about to say here, right? So, definitively, a lot of people would say that there's a couple of golden eras in filmmaking history in America, but the 70s is kind of known for its time where the studio embraced the auteur and
Because they didn't know how to make money.
exactly, and they were giving them to weed smoking hippies who were going out making really interesting films.
Yeah.
Basically, what it did was it embraced the director and the director's voice. And what happened after that is people began to tire of really heavy cinema. And, Jaws came out. That was the invention of the summer blockbuster. But then Star Wars hit. And Star Wars was like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It wasn't William Friedkin.
Yeah.
But
The interesting thing with Star Wars and Jaws was it was like the B movies became the A movies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like in the 50s and 60s, things like Jaws would have been like, like wee cult movies.
Yeah.
Attack of the Space Aliens and all this sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden Star Wars, which you would think is a
Launched it.
B movie concept.
Yeah.
All
But
of a sudden just
like,
goes bananas like.
It was a new era, but it still echoed a lot of the filmmaking process of the 70s, where they would nurture a script until it's great. They would find the right director. And there was also practical challenges within what could be achieved visually. So you still had the old school filmmaking process and mind involved. It was like, well, how do we push this visually in a direction? So they relied a lot on getting the script absolutely dead on right.
80s was the kids movies just became all the John Hughes stuff.
And the
Back to
reason
Future.
why they exploded is because it was a market that was never explored before.
Yeah,
They didn't have a kids movie market.
Yeah. And
they
then
were like, wow.
And the
Parents will take their kids
home
to the
video as
cinema.
well, obviously.
Yeah, a lot of it is down to Steven Spielberg, which is crazy because he made E.T. and there's only one adult's face you see in that entire film.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful idea. It was like, imagine an alien coming down and experiencing planet Earth through a child's eyes, which is really the crux of that movie. It's the hook of the film.
And there's
An extraterrestrial being.
What about Jaws then? You weren't the biggest fan of Jaws, were you? It's a joke
That's
here.
a joke. I love Jaws.
Yeah. Everybody loves Jaws. I think it's alright.
Everybody loves Jaws.
I think it's all right.
Me and Gino have came to heads with this.
But you're in the majority. I'm in the minority. I know.
Yeah, I mean, even my wife, she's just like, see, when I start rambling about film or a scene, she'll be Jaws. Straight away, Jaws. Because I would just ramble on.
So was Spielberg then the guy that you were like?
It started with Spielberg and then very quickly exploded into, I remember seeing John Carpenter's Halloween, and that film lives with me to the day.
He is probably the most underrated filmmaker ever.
Yeah, he had his
great
time.
run in the late 70s, 80s.
Oh,
the Thing and all. The Thing's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And he got kind of hard done by in a lot of ways, but the beautiful thing about John Carpenter is he always stuck to his guns. He also said a very interesting thing that I've always stuck to in my directing career. He was like, if in doubt, just go with your gut. Always go with your gut, because it's the only thing that is purely you.
And then you'll have no regrets then, if you've done it your way.
Go in strong and wrong. If you're wrong, so be it. You live with it.
Yeah, but it is a big challenge in the industry. You've greats like that. Even the greats struggle to get things made, don't they? You know what I mean? And because of the amount of money it takes and all, and that constant, war between finance and creativity. You look at Francis Coppola. I think he sold half his vineyard to budget a movie. He's been trying to get that
film made forever.
For like 30 years. So he sold half his vineyard for 100 million to make it.
I know.
It's mental, isn't it?
It's crazy. And
Can you ever see yourself do that someday? Sell your empire.
It's a good way to start. I mean, like, if you want to get,
But a good thing about starting out making short films is having no money, because then it gets the creative juices really going then, because when you're boxed in, that's when you start to feel, like, for example, let's talk about your short Easy Snooze.
Easy Snooze.
So talk about you guys just made that yourselves.
Yeah.
And as you said, there's no actors involved. You two guys were in it, and it just shows you if you want to make something, just go out and do it.
That was born out of sheer hunger to show people what you could do. And, because I think we were like 20 maybe when we made it, and we were just sick of a video camera and, the standard shit. It was like, right, it's time to get real here. So we went out and we bought what was at the time, it was like a Canon XL2 3CCD. Do you remember? That was like the big thing, broadcast quality.
And was it them mini DV tips?
Mini DV.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of money to be spending. But we were like, well, if we're
how much did it cost? Oh, to buy the camera? Much?
At the time, I think it was almost $2,000.
Right.
Which was a lot of money for a bunch of students.
Absolutely.
And we didn't stop there. We ended up getting a flat pack dolly, and we got a boom mic. And it was the first time actually properly editing, where it's like you had computer facilities. You had to download all of the mini DV footage and render it and then get it into the timeline. But you could actually cut sound, you could cut music, you could, it felt real, and it was like, it just felt like the time to do it. So it was an experiment that was to really show that we understood cinema language.
Yeah, and as a short, there's no dialogue in it. So
no dialogue.
So which again is, it's a good tip, if somebody's just starting out or they want to make a short film, think about the visual storytelling, the visual language, because I think when people initially are drawn to, I want to make films, want to be a filmmaker, the first thing they think about is dialogue, isn't it? It just seems to be the go-to, when you're just starting out. But it's the key when you're starting out is to focus on the visual storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, the dream is to make a film with no dialogue. That is for me anyway.
Yeah. But something really cool when you've a really great filmmaker, like 2001's an example, the first 30 minutes, when you have a really great filmmaker, there's no dialogue and it's just monkeys running about fucking baiting each other with bones and stuff. It's class.
I know. But this film, when you're past 10 minutes, like we tried to do it in The Dig, where it's just hold off.
I watched The Dig the other night, and you can see there's just so much of it. There's no dialogue, but the great thing about that is it gets the audience think, what's going on here? What's going on? And that's what keeps them,
That's what it's all about, man. Asking questions. But I think that the cinematic language can stand it. It stood on its own for a long time before sound was ever there. To tell stories.
Yeah.
And I still think it can stand on its own. And really, that should be the goal.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
it's a visual language that audiences understand and engage with. And everything after that should come secondary.
Yeah, because when you've got all these tools at your disposal, you can get sloppy, can't you? You know, your storytelling can get sloppy, and you know, like.
Well, man, look at it like this: Steven Spielberg made Raiders of the Lost Ark for $8 million.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
$8 million. That wouldn't cover somebody's Winnebago that the star is in these days.
I look at the last Indiana Jones, the one in the summer there was 300 million.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
300. We're looking at where cinema's at now, and you look at the really bloated budgets, and the tent poles are becoming bigger and bigger tent poles. But the problem with that is, like, how do you get the money back on them? You know, they all have to be smash hits for them to get the money back. So you can feel that there's going to be a change in cinema, because you can
It needs another renaissance.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
can feel that things are starting to change, because
Well,
the
I think
formula isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
In terms of, it's still making money, but it's not making as much money. There's a lot of flops this year. The big hits this year were like Oppenheimer, you know, that wasn't expected to be as big a hit as it was. Barbie again, but that's showing you audiences want fresh things now. Mario's another example, big hit, you know, but it was fresh. Nobody had seen it before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the issue is, it's like it's so difficult to get somebody in the cinema these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So difficult.
Yeah.
And it has to be something like Maverick. You know, Andrew and I know as filmmakers the type of filmmakers we are. And I think that that's one thing. Like, see, when you get into past your first movie and you start asking yourself questions, it was like, well, what's the direction my career, you know, how do I want to take my career? You first of all have to ask yourself the question. It was like, what are the types of shows or movies that you want to make? Because that's the first thing someone's going to ask you.
And as soon as you start doing a string of stuff, you can get, you know, actors, everybody knows actors get typecast, but even as a director, you can get pigeonholed into something, you know?
Absolutely.
So as you say, if you want to be something specific, you got to be careful that you just don't go, oh, I'm just going to get these directing gigs so I can put them on the CV. Well, it might send you backwards rather than forwards, you know?
Andrew and I are genre guys. We are. Elevated genre, you know, it has to.
What do you mean by genre, guys? Is there specific ones
I mean, sci-fi, thriller,
Yeah.
horror, you know, something that you can put in a place, in a market,
Yeah.
you know, rather than something like, I don't know, Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it's just like so out there, where it's just like how this even got made
It is
an
unbelievable.
absolute
Miracle.
Yeah, a miracle. And you get filmmakers like that, or, you know, they want to make real personal, social realist stories about issues.
But the most successful films are always the films that transcend a genre. So they always take stories that audiences can relate to and present them in new ways.
Yeah.
And that's where you get the great movies. That's where you get the, you know, even things like romantic comedy, because romantic comedies are so rigid in their story structure, they're really hard to make innovative. That's why there's so many bad ones.
Yeah.
But when you get the ones that stand out, they're always ones that play with the form or play with the structure or whatever. You know, like Harry Met Sally and all those sorts of things. You know what I mean?
Gary Aster, like his approach to horror, you know, when you look at Hereditary, I mean, even the title, it's about family. It's about, you know, a parent losing a parent. You know, it's about proper family issues and struggles. And that is really much at the forefront of that film. And the performances are so huge and fantastic. And it's almost like a 50-50 balance. But when the drama's there, it's explosive. But when it's horror, it's equally terrifying. And I think that if you can do that, if you can blend, like splice a genre and give the audience something a little bit more than just a straightforward horror film, switch it up.
So The Dig, how did it come about? You went through the shorts.
I mean, we did a couple of shorts within a screen. We did a couple of self-financed short films. And then I did my first one, which was called Paint, a long time ago. And it's weird how, because I hated it when I first made it. And it taught me a lot. It was my first funded short film was a complete baptism of fire, because it was like you were put into a situation. It was like, okay, this is a real film set. I was like, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And the worst thing I did was I hesitated and I doubted myself, and I shouldn't have, because I knew exactly what I was there to do. But when you have the lights and you have old men fixing lights that have been in the game 50 years, you know, a lot of doubt started to creep in. And after that, for short, because I really feel like I didn't nail the story. It wasn't what I wanted to tell. And I just felt like it was, so many beats were missing and there was just gaps in it all over the place. And, you know, upon reflection, looking back at that short now, there's a charm to it that I never saw, because it was just blinded by the mistakes. And it just takes you to have a bit of distance. See things almost. It was like, okay, what I did there was actually, I never noticed that, and that's quite touching. But that's.
But those are great. You know, if you make something that is a disaster or whatever, you know, or it isn't how you wanted it or whatever, sometimes that's a really good thing. If you've got the perspective to understand what went wrong with it. You know what I mean? So let's say you had made that, you thought it was great, but it wasn't great. That could have been a problem. You know what I mean? For your development then as a filmmaker. Whereas
it's reminding yourself that you're the one in charge. And I think that it's a very daunting thing going on to a film set. That's why the biggest thing I could ever say to anybody who wants to start out in this industry is get on a film set as soon as possible. If you want to be a director, I don't care if you're sweeping a floor, get on a film set. You need to understand how it all works. The nuts and bolts of everything. Everybody's role. Everybody's there to do a specific thing. It's your duty to learn how all of those cogs fit in the wheel, you know.
So when you made Paint, were you working in the film industry at the time?
No.
Right. So that makes sense.
Yes. And then straight after that, I was like, I'm getting on any film set that I can. And that was really the beginning of it. And it was out of that baptism of fire where I was like, I just need to know, to be able to read a call sheet and see where the problems lie in the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, that only comes with doing thousands of hours on sets.
And as you said, it's so vitally important. If I agree too, if you want to direct or whatever, to get on a film set as soon as you can and work on a variety of things. So we've both worked on micro budget and mega budget. So when you see how those machines operate differently, because they all operate very differently. The micro budget stuff's like a million miles an hour. Some of the high budget stuff you might only do 2 shots in a day. You know what I mean? So when you've got that whole catalogue of experience, and then you can filter that into how you make something in your shoot day.
You know, as you know, man, like we've worked on really, really big stuff where you're standing there and the director doesn't know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And you're like, how have you got to this position and not being able to make a decision? You're in the decision-making business. It's your job to make the decisions. Good or bad, they're yours to make.
But that's where you go into the industry, because it's so big and there's so much money involved. It can get very political, and you know what I mean? Like in high-profile positions where people might be in a position not because of their qualities or whatever, but because it suits the producer, or they could be a puppet for another. You know what I mean? There's all that sort of, especially
they're
bigger
making
you
a
get.
movie to end a contract with a studio, all of that madness.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I said to somebody I was a director of TV and film. It was the Taxi Driver. He was like, what are you doing? I was like, I get to say this now. That's weird. And to be honest, I'm still not convinced. Like,
It is a weird thing to say, isn't it?
It is a weird thing to say, but you know, it's also an amazing privilege.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know?
But it must have been, how did it feel then when you made The Dig and, you know, you got that film over the line and you got it all shot? There must have been some sense of relief, was there? Or some sense of, you know, you and your brother go, like, we finally achieved what we've always dreamed of type of thing.
It was an amazing... it was like the ultimate box tick, because no one can take it away from you. You've got a film now that exists.
Yeah.
You know, and... it was about doing it right, and I think that's another. It's just another bit of advice for anybody planning their first feature. Make sure it's the right story for you. Don't rush making your first feature, because you've only one shot to make it, and you've gotta love the story. You've gotta kill for the story because it's your name on it. And you should be making all the decisions.
You touched on something interesting earlier on too, when you said, you done paint and you went on the set and there was all these people and, and a key element in what you do a lot of with your brother is putting all the work into prep and going in knowing exactly what you're doing when you're coming up against guys that are vastly more experienced than you are and like camera operators first that have been in the game for like 20 or 30 years and they've seen it all, so you got to have your homework done. Otherwise, there's people on set, they'll try and railroad you. Do you know what I mean?
Without a doubt. I mean, and that's one thing Andrew and I always do. Always stick to the plan because we know it works. Andrew has, he's an editor. He builds the entire film in his head before we even go to set. I've had, like yourself, been on sets for 12, 13 years. It's like you build up all of this information and you can see problems a million miles away, but knowing that something works and coming in with a plan, and when you come up and it'll happen and it'll be people that you're like, I don't want to rock the boat, but it's either your vision or you take a back seat and then you have to live with it for the rest of your life. So it's just one of those things. I hope I'm not being an asshole here, but
no, it's true though.
You've got to really care and you've got to be in uncomfortable rooms and push what you want, and you don't have to be an asshole to do it. You can be a very nice diplomatic person and just go in and say, this is what we intend to do. And if you give plenty of notice, you don't change your mind, people will get behind you.
Yeah. And like on set too, if you get off to a fast start, it's very important, isn't it? In the mornings. I always say if you win the morning, you win the day. So the dig then, how did that come about? What attracted you to the project?
It came about, Stuart Drennan reached out. I can't remember. I think Stuart saw one of our short films and he liked it, and I think it was Across the Bear, short film anyway, but it was one of the shit ones. But
how many shorts did you make?
I think we've made 7 short films.
Right.
He sent me the script and I was on Game of Thrones at the time and we were out in Croatia or Spain. Ryan, do you remember me? I saw you and your brothers, a couple of your short films. I've got this script into NI Screen for funding. Let me know what you think. I'd love to get a chat with you. And I opened it up. It just said, exterior Belfast prison. And then I looked at the next scene and it just says interior jail cell. And I just went, this is a fucking Troubles movie. I didn't read it, which was stupid.
Right.
So Stuart, a week and a half had passed, and then he texted me and was like, did you read the script? And you were like, I just said, I'm not really interested in making a political film, really. And he was like, you didn't read the script, did you? And I was like, no. I was like, just go read the script. It was like literally handed material.
You're getting on your high horse from reading one line of a script. I'm not making any politics.
Yeah. So, yes. So then I realized that straight after that, it's the classic, a man comes to town, and I read it and I understood by that stage as a filmmaker, knowing the budgets that were being handed out for the new talent focus, you're talking about 300 grand, which isn't a lot. Mm-hmm. Will this be feasible to shoot within the budget? So that's what I was reading it, thinking. And it was all set on a bog. And I just fell in love with the imagery straight away. It was like, and Stuart did such a good job at describing the action and, the coldness and the bleakness of it. And it just painted pictures in my mind straight away. And it was like, this is a Western. It's an Irish Western.
Yeah. Visually, it looks great. You take into consideration the budget and all the exterior stuff looks class.
Yeah.
Angus
was in the viewfinder every morning just laughing. He was like, look how, because the skies were so heavy and it's so grey and it was just beautiful for exposure, man.
Yeah,
It was just lovely.
Yeah.
And the only time that I actually is a sunny day is the last scene of the whole film,
Right.
which is really good, and it was a sheer coincidence.
There you go.
Really,
Film gods looking down at you.
Yeah, it was great. But yeah, I mean, The Dig, I remember reading it and I couldn't stop reading it. And
The
Callahan-
location was great. Really good location, really good.
Yeah.
That bog
And that was one of those things where it was like trying to find that location because I didn't want to spread it out. I didn't want to have the bog and then the house, in two separate places because, you're losing an hour travel.
Yeah.
And
And the lovely thing where you can have the house and bog beside each other is you can flip back and forward. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
If you need to pick something up or whatever.
For that budget, you need a sandbox where everything's there at your fingertips.
Yeah.
And if you need to pivot, you can. Like it snowed one day, and I was like, this film doesn't have snow in it.
Yeah.
So we had to move interior. Yeah.
And we shot there again on Derry Girls, didn't we? We were working with, yeah. I remember you just reminiscing in your glory up on that.
That was
on top
weird.
of that mountain, just going.
Yeah, I thought
Takes
I'd never
me
be
back.
back there. The tree was still there.
What? Brilliant. Big shout out to Mo Dunford, who was brilliant in the
Sensational.
movie, wasn't he?
And an
I met him at your birthday. He's a gentleman, isn't he?
he's an amazing human being and a true talent. And he carried the show. Like, if in doubt, shoot him.
Really tough performance.
And he went to some serious depths, and it was our first feature. Mo's a very experienced actor. He's done a lot of screen acting and he's very disciplined at it. And, we met day one and we had the luxury of rehearsal time, which you never really get. But just to chat through the Callahan character, and I just said to him, look, man, this is a very, Callahan is looking for redemption in every corner, in every facet of this story, and you just want the audience to understand his plight and the fact that he feels like he needs to be punished, and we did, he punished himself a lot. He wouldn't take a warm coat.
Right? Yeah. Just to keep him in that headspace.
He just lived in it at all times, and he was freezing and he was covered in mud head to toe. Andrew and I are very proud of The Dig. It took us to many parts of the world. We toured with it and went to Toronto. I went to Busan International Film Festival in Korea.
It was the Galway Film Festival. You won Best Irish Film, did you?
Yeah. Best Irish
That's
film.
brilliant. I love Galway. I just love that
Galway's-
film festival. It's
it's the
amazing.
Mecca.
Yeah. Such an amazing city, isn't it?
And, everyone's there to have fun, and, everyone just parties into the night. It was a really beautiful time, man, because, you weren't pretending anymore.
Yeah.
what?
It wasn't a wanna be a filmmaker. It's like, now I am a filmmaker. type
Yeah,
thing.
but it was also, there was a modesty in the fact that we were just delighted that we had the opportunity to go and see these cities and to tour with a movie. That's dream come true stuff.
Yeah.
And then, we got a LA agent and manager out of it. We went to Los Angeles and did the tours there, met with studios and, had opportunities with other films. Yeah.
So speaking of which, you then got offered to do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
So what happened there that you can speak about?
Well, it was an amazing experience, and it is probably the most vital experience I've ever had being a filmmaker, because it just taught me not so much. Well, it taught me a lot about the industry, about a section of the industry that I didn't know a lot about, which is how studios work. You put me on a film set, we know everything, you're very comfortable there in that world, but you're walking into a big board meeting, you're sitting down with CEOs of studios. It's a very different thing, it's a very daunting thing.
Yeah.
But it taught me a lot about myself as a person and a film director. And that John Carpenter thing of staying true to yourself, staying true to your gut. regardless of what is coming your way, and trying to fight for it. And I think that the main thing Andrew and I learned in the whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing was when we went there at the start, it was kind of like, oh, we're just happy to be here. You know, we're the Irish guys that have got lucky, and, you know, we don't want to piss anybody off, and, you know, we just want to go and do the best we can. And it was a very wet behind the ears approach. And I think now, if circumstances were different, we would handle it very, very differently. Throwing COVID into the mix.
But as you said earlier on, like you have to be true to yourself, don't you?
Yeah, man, it's the only thing you've got.
Yeah.
It's the only thing you've got. And after it, like, see the second when we finished that,
yeah,
and we came home, it was just like the amount we learned in just that experience is like,
yeah,
it
absolutely.
is unbelievable, because I could walk into a room and I'll pitch what I want, and I will fight to maintain my vision, which is the director's job.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have to be an asshole about it, but, you know, you got to be passionate about it, and you got to be able to back up your reasons why you want to do things a certain way. There's no point in throwing your weight around and throwing your toys out of the pram if you don't know what you want.
How did Dalgleish come about, directing on the TV series Dalgleish?
Marty Mahan, who worked on Thrones, phoned me one day, just out of the blue, and lovely guy, had a real producer head on him, you know, and an eye for talent.
What was he phoning you for then?
No, but I got on really well with him, and he was like, look, I'm producing this show. I definitely wanted to land at a directing gig just to shake off the whole Texas Chainsaw Massacre thing, and just get the confidence back, and just be like, you know, shit happens. You got to move on.
Series 1 of Dalgleish was split into like 3 stories, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, so they had a director doing each story and each block. So that meant you weren't continuing on the work from somebody else. You were starting from scratch.
It wasn't your classic block director TV.
Yeah,
where you come
and
in.
you had been encouraged to
to put your stamp.
Put you just to make it different from the story one, etc. Which is great if you're a director, then, isn't it?
Yeah. And new pictures were amazing, and they really embraced that. And, you know, we went in and working with Bertie Carvel, who is an absolute gent and an amazing talent.
He's a fabulous actor, isn't he?
He's
and a lovely man.
And, you know, he's got his methods. And the wild thing is, and he self-confessed, he would tell you himself, he was like, he's a very specific way of working. But if you give him that creative space, it's going to be more beneficial for the show, for the director, for everyone. You just got to afford him the space. And he was kind enough to tell us this up front, so we could pivot with that in mind. You know, just before the block happens, just let him come in and feel the room and let him walk around.
Because his background before that was theatre, really, wasn't it? So he's coming from theatre, and then
he loves to rehearse.
Yes.
And, you know, we found a common ground by illustrating, you know, in a creative relationship, because he was the guardian of his character, and he went to levels that we will never understand about Dalgleish. And that's his thing. You know, Andrew and I are there to tell the story, you know, with his character in mind. So a lot of those deep-seated character moments, he kind of kept to himself, and that was fine. You know, it's when it came into blocking scenes, it became, you know, challenging at times.
Yeah.
But the staple that I have stuck to from that is just saying, okay, this is important to you. This is what's important to me. And being able to state that, it was like, you have your creative intentions.
Yeah.
I have my creative intentions. There's a way that these two can coexist. You know, and once you get that figured out, you know, the guy was amazing. That's one of the most amazing things about working with an actor is I'm not an actor. You know, they're going to go to certain places where, as a filmmaker, because you don't not only have the time, but you just don't have the depths to go to because you're not becoming that person.
Yeah.
They are. And they can open doors for you to have insights that help the whole process, which is great. And I guess that's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Because I can channel, what the audience is seeing, why they're seeing, why we're denying a shot of you at this moment, why that camera's moving, and tie that all into the flavor of the story we're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And I think that once you build a relationship with an actor like that, it was like, you can give to me and I can give to you reasons why we are working this way. Keeping an actor abreast of practical things and why we're doing things is a massive comfort to them because they need to know and they want to know. Most actors always want to know why we're doing things a certain way. And then you get other amazing people that come in and say, where do you want me?
Yeah.
It swings and roundabouts, man.
When I'm working with actors, if I think I'm doing a really good job, it's when I'm not giving them much direction, that sort of a way. So I like that. I like an actor taking a character, and I don't like getting in the way of that. Do you know what I mean? I don't like getting in the way of certain nuances that the personality traits the character has.
The best thing a director can do is listen to an actor. That's the best. That's rule number one. Listen to your actor. They've got a reason for doing it. Listen to them. Because, they're there. They're self-serving, obviously, but they're serving the story and they're serving the character, truthfully and honestly. And you'd be a fool not to listen.
Yeah.
Give them the space to be creative. I mean, make them feel safe. All of these classic things. Provide a safe space for your actor. All of that Judith Weston stuff. You know what I'm talking about. But, it's real that it exists and allow them to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Be strong and wrong.
Like I remember, when I was working with John on Taxi Joe, I just let him. Just where you go, because he's so experienced. He's done it for donkeys. He writes. He does. You know what I mean? And if I got in the way of that,
exactly.
All I had to do is think, does this work story wise? Does this work story wise? And that was effectively it. But you want to create an environment where they can just go.
See, in the Castaways, man. Completely blessed with such amazing actors. Like every single actor in this show is phenomenal, and working with Sheridan Smith was an amazing experience because, she is so seasoned. She's been doing TV since she was young, like teenager.
Yeah,
and she's a very accomplished theater actress. She's a beautiful singer, and she came on to set and she was like, "Where do you want me?" And you're like, it's that easy with you, Sheridan. And it really was. And she was unbelievable. And all she needed was a bit of reassurance from her and guidance. I was like, is that too much? Is that too, But she was so emotive, and emotionally she just opened up like a floodgate for scenes where you just couldn't believe where it came from.
Yeah.
And then it was cut. And then she was like, was that all right? You're like, yeah, that was great. So, every actor's different. Like yourself, man, it is one of those difficult things where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. One of the blessings of just Andrew and I working together is someone can be fixing things practically or working with the DOP, and then one of us can fully invest in the actor and the performance because things are going on in the background.
What's the ideal project that you would like to do?
We really want to make another film. I mean, the beautiful thing is we directed a mini-series, me and Andrew, all on our own, 5 episodes. Very proud of it. That's there. It's like, it'd be lovely to get back into making a film again, and touring with it. And hopefully all of those facilities are still in place in the future of cinema.
Brilliant. Ryan, thank you very much for coming in today.
Gino, I hope I didn't blabber too much and fix it in the edit.
Plenty of editing to do.
Yeah.
The Castaways is on Paramount Plus, streaming from Boxing Day, the whole series. Support the local lads. Ryan and Andy went to, where'd you go to shoot it? Greece?
We went to Greece and Fiji.
Greece and Fiji. So we're starting to conquer the world here from Northern Ireland. Ryan, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you, guys.
Until next time, see you after.
See ya.